Hello, welcome back to my fave fanfics. Here, I post, well, my favorite fanfictions, if that wasn't obvious. I do hope you'll enjoy them as much as I do. Please like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome, my dear faves, to the fourth part of What If Ace Was Stuck in a Time Loop. Credit goes to jgginmeg for this fantastic fanfic. Link is in the description for those who prefer to read or want to contact the author. Chapter 10. And the fireworks go off. Whitebeard laughed happily at the report Thatch gave him. Garurarararara. Ace called me, Pops. I'm so happy. This calls for a party. Thatch blinked, then dropped the other shoe. He also seemed to be going mentally insane, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't on drugs or alcohol. Ace claimed we were all dead. Ah. That is concerning. The Yonko's brow furrowed. Why would he think we're dead? We are alive and breathing right now. Unless we're ghosts or something. Besides, isn't he the one trying to kill me? Thatch flushed. I thought he could see the future, a future where we're all dead, maybe. It's plausible. That wouldn't be one of the strangest things we've seen. Remember that one Marine from Sabayati? Thatch shuddered. You didn't need to remind me. That was horrifying. I'll assign you and Marco to keep watch over Ace. Make sure he's okay, maybe Bay too. If he has some sort of mental disorder, I wouldn't be the best person for the job. Thatch nodded and turned to leave. I'll tell Marco and Bay. One more thing. I picked up Ace not just because he's a stray. His first thought was to protect his crew from the strongest man in the world. But when he fought me, there was something dark hidden in his eyes. And that darkness is even more present now. So, please take care of Ace, I'll try my best too. We will, Oyaji. Sabo swallowed nervously, pacing the deck of Garp's ship, dark scenarios returning to his mind on what Ace would say to him. Would he even want a brother like me anymore? I abandoned them all, lost my memory, I was so fucking useless when they needed me. Sabo really wished he could turn back time, redo his life, never eat at that one ramen shop that fateful day. He could still remember his father's face. No, that piece of filth didn't have the right to be his father, as he reached out to Sabo, calling him back. He wished he never set out to sail the day the celestial dragons came. His ship was shot down by a cannonball and it went up in flames. It was truly a miracle he was alive. The only prize gained was the burn scar covering half of his face. That was why he grew his hair long, to cover the hateful burn. 4 hours to the Moby Dick. 4 hours until he saw Ace again. What would he say? More importantly, what would Ace say? I'm tired, I'm worn. My heart is heavy. From the work it takes to keep on breathing. I've made mistakes, I've let my hope fail. Thatch sighed, walking to Ace's room, holding a plate of steaming food, a well-balanced meal. He wasn't the head chef of the Whitebeard Pirates for nothing. Opening the door, Thatch saw Ace curled in a little ball on the bed, possibly sleeping. It was endearing, really, if it weren't for the fact that Ace was possibly mentally unstable. But then he shifted under the covers, and Thatch knew he was awake. Ace, you haven't eaten for many days. Even if you were fishing, you can't just live off of fish, the balance would be terrible. You need vegetables, potatoes, meat besides fish, etc. Time to pull the guilt card. Your crew is worried about you. If you won't eat food that I make, Then fine, but your whole crew is on board and ready to shove food down your throat at a moment's notice. So Ace, please eat. Ace groaned and sat up, shooting a disgruntled look at Thatch. Fine, but only because of my crew. I'm still not joining. Thatch set the steaming plate of food down on the floor next to Ace. For the first time, he noticed how impossibly small the room was and wondered if Ace suffered from claustrophobia. Thatch waited for Ace to eat, but he didn't even touch the food. Ace simply stared at Thatch, as if willing him to leave Ace alone. Fine, I'll leave. Promise to eat the food. Thatch flashed Ace what he hoped was a winning smile. Okay. Please. Kindly. Get out. Hey, Ace used his manners. Makino would be so proud of him. Thatch mock saluted Ace and backed out of the room, hands above his head, closing the door behind him. Ellipsis. Ace stared at the food Thatch brought him and slowly brought a bite to his mouth. He had promised after all. He refused to think of the many other promises he'd broken. The food was soup and bread. Nice and simple. As he ate, he wondered if his crew was really on board, or if Thatch had just been bullshitting into making him eat. Then again, Thatch wasn't the type to bullshit. Grudgingly, Ace admitted that Thatch was right. It was not good for him to go without eating for this long. Especially since he was AD and could out-eat Luffy and Garp any day. Hell, he could probably out-eat Big Mom, of all people. In any case, this soup was not enough to satisfy his hunger. But he'd be damned, the food was good. Thatch was a good cook. He would not admit that aloud, maybe in a different timeline. In this one he was supposed to act like an asshole. Unless he was hallucinating the food too. He had hallucinated that weird raincoat-wearing thing. Nah, probably not. He pinched himself. It hurt. Nope, not hallucinating. Ace sighed as he stared at the dregs of the soup. He was still hungry. Maybe he would steal food again. It was almost his birthday, after all. In just a couple of hours. He looked down at his thin, skinny frame. He could sleep it off. It was fine. He'd gotten most of his madness out the day before. Putting the empty food bowl outside his door, Ace pulled the covers over him and blew out the lamps. Sleep claimed him as his own, and for the first time in many days, Ace actually slept. And had another nightmare. From that timeline. My soul feels crushed by the weight of this world. And I know that you can give me rest. So I cry out with all that I have left. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. How long until an admiral would come? Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Time was running out. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. The Marines were coming. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. They tried to take Luffy. Ace killed them all, shielding Luffy's eyes from the carnage and the burning slave auction house behind them. It's okay, Luffy. I'm here, and I won't let them take you. Luffy looked up, eyes shining in a smile so bright. He'd seen so much, yet was still innocent and naive. Ace swore that if someone took that away from him, they would die a miserable and painful death. The two were almost at the docks, where Ace's coated ship, Striker, waiting to take them back to Pop's shop. The two were almost to freedom. Ace ran, carrying Luffy, legs burning with the strain along with the heavy scent of smoke in the air. But Luffy was alive and safe, and that was all that mattered. Ace would gladly die for him. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Striker burned up, its engine exploding before Ace's eyes, pieces of shrapnel flying in all directions. Ace gaped at the sight, his body automatically shielding Luffy from the impending danger. A piece of shrapnel embedded itself into Ace's tat, right in the C in his tattoo. Another piece embedded itself above Ace's right eye. Who? Ace looked wildly around the grove, searching for the perpetrator. Magma. That could only mean one admiral, Akainu. As soon as the realization popped into Ace's mind, he knew that Luffy was no longer safe. The two had to get out of there before they died. Pirate scum. Akainu walked forward, menacingly, towering easily over Ace and Luffy. And a slave. Ace put Luffy behind him and stood, fists clenched. He couldn't run. Not out of fear, but because Luffy was behind him. And he would protect the ones that he loved the most. Akainu smiled. It was not a nice one. Do you know what happens when people get drunk? Ace snarled. Get on with it. Akainu ignored Ace and continued. When people get drunk, they say things, usually their deepest secrets. And people get drunk sometimes to forget. Maybe because of guilt and overwhelming loss. I'll give you an example, pirate. Your grandfather. Sad and depressed that his grandson got kidnapped and is a slave. People will usually drink under those circumstances, and in his case he felt overwhelming guilt that he wasn't there when this slave, Akainu jerked his thumb at Luffy, needed him most. So he drank. Sometimes drunkards would say things, maybe talk about the Pirate King, the incarnation of the devil himself. Ace's blood ran cold. Sometimes drunkards would talk about the Pirate King's son. Akainu's fist smoldered in magma, the heat forming wisps of steam that blurred Ace's vision. Portgas d Ace. Or should I say, Gal d Ace. Tick-tock, tick-tock. And Ace bolted awake in cold sweat, barely muffling a scream. Ace immediately walked out of the room, looking at the night sky above, trying to clear his thoughts from the memory-turned nightmare. He walked onto a secluded part of the deck, breathing in the sea spray. The moon was bright. Already he could hear the sounds of a party starting to celebrate the new year. That meant he'd slept around 6 hours, wonderful. Someone, Jozu, maybe, was counting down the minutes to the start of a new beginning. Music was playing as rowdy pirates stamped their feet, cheering while swinging tankards of booze. Among them, Ace spotted Thatch with his ridiculous pompadour and Marco with his pineapple haircut, talking to the commanders and Whitebeard. 3 other ships, nearly carbon copies of the Moby Dick, were anchored next to the original. Then there was one ship that recently pulled up. It had Whitebeard's mark on the sails, so Ace supposed it was just a team who restored order to one of Oya Whitebeard's many territories. Since the Spade Pirates were situated among the 4 ships, Ace supposed that Thatch hadn't been lying, the Spades really were here. Ace had no intention of finding his former crew, he hadn't seen them for many, many loops. He could hardly remember what he originally was like. If he met them too soon, then he couldn't bullshit his way around them. The Spades had spent years with him, after all they could tell immediately if something was off. Then again, if he met a family member, well, they could tell something was off sooner than the Spades. Ace knew from experience from past loops, somehow Luffy, Garp, and even Dayton knew something was wrong. The only difference was the way that they dealt with it. And Garp did not deal with it very well. He dealt with it rather violently. In other words, Ace didn't know how to pretend around the people who really knew him. Turning his attention back to the sea, Ace paled as he saw a marine ship. It had a dog as the figurehead. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Ace was really starting to question what star he was born under. Let me see redemption win. Let me know the struggle ends. That you can mend a heart that's frail and torn. I want to know a song can rise from the ashes of a broken life. And all that's dead inside can be reborn. "'Cause I'm warned. Permission to come aboard." Garp's voice boomed over the sea. Ace winced, covering his ears. "Gararararara. Permission to come aboard." Quote. Edward Newgate stared curiously as Garp jumped on board. "Come to join the festivities?" he asked. Garp stared dangerously at Whitebeard, killing intent seeping in the air. All music stopped as pirates and marines alike stared at the two old men. "First, I want to know something. Did you kill Portgas d'Ace?" "No. Why would you think that?" Whitebeard frowned. The dangerous aura vanished as Garp's expression cleared. A smile split his face. "I have someone Ace would be interested in meeting." Garp returned back to his marine ship. "What do you mean?" "Ace. Get out here and say hello to your grandfather." You could hear a pin drop as pirates and marines tried to process the information. Ace sighed. There really was no getting out of this. Pirates cleared a path for him as he walked toward Garp. Ace stopped in front of him, crossing his arms over his chest. "The fuck do you want?" That sounded like something past him would say. In any case, Garp seemed convinced he was fine. "Call me Grandpa, brat." Fist of love. Ow. The fuck was that for, shitty geezer? Yeah, that was really something he would have said if he wasn't looping. Ace momentarily forgot himself and for a brief second reverted back to his original self, bickering with Garp. "In any case, I have someone you would be very interested in meeting." I was surprised too. Garp nodded sagely, ignoring his smoking fist. He then proceeded to walk into the depths of his ship. Thatch checked the clock and revived the festivities. 5. Ace frowned, curious, walking forward to the marine ship. 4. Garp came back out, dragging someone behind him. "Hey, hold it, I'm not ready yet." The mysterious figure struggled in Garp's grip like a cornered alley cat. 3. Ace felt all eyes on him, even as the pirates counted down the seconds to the new year. He recognized that person. 2. The top hat, the grin, even the clothes, it was all the same. But he couldn't be alive, he'd died years ago. But it was all the same, all the same. Then he spoke, and Ace knew it was him. 1. "Hey, Ace." Sabo smiled bleakly. "Happy birthday. Happy New Year." Ace punched him. "Where the fuck have you been?" Sabo. And the fireworks went off. Chapter 11. In my defense. Ace's mind spun as he stared at the all-too-familiar blonde, fire threatening to break free from under his skin, to destroy and consume everything in its path. For the first time in years, Ace lost control of his devil fruit. Flames licked at the edges of his shoulders, but he managed to tone it down to a low simmer. Then he punched his supposedly dead brother again, knocking him on the floor. It infuriated Ace that Sabo didn't fight back. Ace wasn't satisfied with punching the shit out of him, he felt the overwhelming urge to destroy something. Something besides his brother. Gray eyes narrowing dangerously, Ace snarled, "You better have a good reason for this, a damn good explanation. How the fucking hell are you alive? You didn't recognize me when I confronted you long ago. You were dead." Ace stated it as a simple fact. Something he had come to the bitter conclusion of. Sabo smiled weakly, but Ace knew him well enough to see that he was wobbling between sadness, regret, and joy. Fuck. I haven't seen him in thousands of loops, yet I still know him this well. In that case, what does Sabo see in me? You've gotten stronger, Ace. You see, I do have a reasonable explanation. Did you know that if something hits your head hard enough, you can lose your memories? Quote. The world stilled around Ace, the background noise fading into meaningless chatter. He only focused on his brother. You're saying? Yep. Maybe it was a piece of falling debris, maybe it was the cannonball, or maybe it was actually the trauma from being shot down by a celestial dragon. Sabo was no longer smiling. I'm sorry, Ace. Sorry that I wasn't there for you and Luffy. When you needed me, I wasn't. He couldn't bring himself to finish his sentence as his shoulders trembled slightly, tears threatening to fall. Before Ace knew what he was doing, he walked forward and hugged his brother, hot tears falling from his eyes. Ace hugged Sabo tight, refusing to let him go again. It's my fault. We never looked. I mean, we just assumed you were dead from what Dogra told us. I almost thought you were dead too. Sabo pulled away, wiping tears from his eyes, a watery chuckle escaping from his throat. What the hell were you thinking, challenging Whitebeard like that? Quote. Just like that, the two were kids again. Hey. It's not my fault that he decided to kidnap me. Besides, you know that I'm stronger than to be killed by, oh, the strongest man in the world. Ace pouted petulantly, evaporating the rest of his tears using the power of the Mera Mera no Mi. Steam steadily rose from his eyes in thin wisps. Also, he wants to adopt me, make me one of his sons. Ace frowned. But I can't. I mean, I won't join his crew. Sabo raised an eyebrow at Ace's slip-up, but didn't comment on it. How about we talk somewhere more private? He gestured at nearby pirates who were listening, albeit subtly, to their conversation. Ace nodded, finding Thatch and Marco among the crowd of spectators. Yeah, I know a place, follow me. Ace led Sabo through a maze of drunk pirates and spilled booze, past Garp, who was immersed in a deep conversation with Whitebeard. Once the two were safely in Ace's borrowed room, Sabo flopped down on the bed, Ace sitting on the floor. After a moment of silence, Sabo let out a low whistle. Wow. Just wow, he smiled. It's so nice to just be here with you, you know? I can't really describe it, but like, it's comforting. Ace grinned at Sabo. I'm so glad you're alive. But does Luffy know? Quote. Sabo sighed, grimacing slightly. About that, I was planning on surprising him when he sets out to sail at 17. Like we all promised. Then he brightened. I heard you ate the Mera Mera no Mi. It really suits your whole hothead personality. Why you? I only speak the truth. You are a hothead. And strong. Which probably led to Whitebeard capturing you, because maybe he likes people like that. So you're saying that it's my fault that I got kidnapped by these bastards? I'm still trying to kill him every day, you know. I've resorted to any means possible. Of course you would do that. What else would I expect? Sabo stopped, as if thoroughly considering his next words. Let me ask you one question though. Would you want to stay with them? I mean, your dad, well, I guess fathers were always a touchy subject for the ASL. So would you want Whitebeard as a father? We could take you away easily. Ace looked at the floor. He couldn't lie, Sabo would catch on easily. So he opted for the second option, deflect the topic. Faking confusion, he asked, we? Quote. Sabo smiled dryly. Not Gramps, if that's what you're thinking, although he'd jump at the chance to get you on his ship and make you a Marine. After all, the only reason why I'm here is because the shitty old geezer forced me into a Marine uniform. Obviously, I changed my clothes. He gestured at his noble-like outfit. I still see you have the stupid tissue. A pause. It's a cravat, Ace. And by we, I mean me and some revolutionaries. Another pause. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I'm Chief of Staff in the Revolutionary Army. EH? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. I mean, well, you always hated nobles so. Nodding, Sabo replied, the Marines' justice system is fucked. So I took the promotion. Never thought you were one for cursing. Bitch, please. I have a pretty fucking impressive vocabulary. Use it right, my enemies will start bleeding in their ears. Quote. Okay. Geez. A mischievous glint crept into Sabo's eyes. Whatever you're thinking, it cannot be good, Ace said, looking at Sabo, concerned. You were always the suicidal one, so you can't be talking. I still am, Ace thought, but he chose to keep his thoughts to himself. Do you want to spar? Sabo stared at Ace excitedly. And wreck the ship of the strongest man in the world? Yep. Ace grinned, pulling Sabo to his feet. The dark thoughts and the sadness could hide away for now. Right now, Ace wanted to spend time with his brother. A brother he hadn't seen in years. I know I need to lift my eyes up. But I'm too weak. Life just won't let up. And I know that you can give me rest. So I cry out with all that I have left. Bawahahahaha. I can't believe AC did that. Quote. A very drunk Garp laughed, Newgate chuckling along with him. A few of Garp's subordinates looked at each other, confused. Garp the Fist was a renowned member of the Marines, famous for capturing the king of the pirates amongst many other accomplishments. Now that very same Garp was laughing with the strongest man in the world like they were best friends, trading stories of a certain Logia. In addition, Garp apparently had two grandsons, one of which was Fire Fist, Ace, a notorious pirate well known for, well, his fire fist. Funnily enough, Marco happened to be thinking about Ace as well. And the mysterious teenager dressed like a noble with a nasty burn scar on half of his face. The interaction between the two was interesting, to say the least. Ace had punched the blonde, hugged him, then talked to him about something. Marco had never been the best at lip reading, after all. Pirates celebrating the new year didn't help. Taking a sip of alcohol, he glanced at Thatch, who was less subtle in hiding his curiosity between Ace and the other man, as he kept glancing at the direction in which the two had left. Spit it out already. Marco bored holes into Thatch's pompadour. Do I even want to know what you're thinking? Quote. No, you don't, Thatch promised. You do not. The concerning part is that I can actually believe that. Turkey, Thatch pouted. A large crash shook the Moby, the floor shaking as the sea rumbled. The fuck was that? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Thatch gaped at the deck, the floor no longer vibrating. Marco had a very strange feeling that he knew who the culprit was. Bawahahahahaha! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Ace and Sabo are probably sparring. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Garp bellowed this fact across the length of the Moby as members winced, covering their ears. Sabo. So that's what the other teen's name was. Sighing in resignation, Marco responded, let's find out. Taking the lead, he walked down a passage leading to the lower deck, nearly scared of the absolute chaos he knew he would find. The other commanders followed. A boom shook the Mobi. Again. A few minutes earlier, Ace led Sabo to one of the many training rooms that he knew the Mobi had. A variety of weapons were hung on the walls, some that Ace had used to try to kill Po. Fuck. He had to stop thinking of him as his dad. Sabo looked at Ace curiously. Something wrong? Quote. No, nothing. Just had a thought. His back was turned away from Sabo, so he couldn't tell if Ace was lying or not. Sabo was always better at lying anyway. Stepping into the ring, the two brothers circled each other as they set the rules. First rule. No devil fruit. Sabo looked at Ace. Seeing as you're the only one with a devil fruit here, obviously that applies to you only. Then no weapons, just regular bow staffs. No sea stone laced in them. Ace looked at Sabo specifically. Sabo mockingly put a hand over his heart. As if I would stoop that low. By the way, hockey is allowed. How am I supposed to hit a Logia without hockey anyways? Quote. Ace internally agreed with Sabo. Deal. Let's spar. The two grabbed weapons from a nearby rack and began counting down. 3, 2, 1. Go. Quote. Launching himself at Sabo, Ace swung his bow staff, coated in hockey, down. Although he had lived for more than 1,000 years, his uncanny ability to use a bow staff lethally had never gotten rusty. Sabo blocked the attack with his own staff and swung his leg at the fire user. Ace quickly jumped back, avoiding the kick with practiced ease. Twirling the bow staff, Sabo charged at Ace again, feinting to the right and sliding on the floor, which caused him to come up behind Ace. Ace was an experienced pirate, and although Sabo had never used this tactic when the two had sparred years ago, Ace still spun around, blocking the hit with his bow staff. Sabo leapt back and Ace jumped, doing some sort of complicated twist in the air. His right arm gained momentum and he managed to clock Sabo in the jaw. Sabo flew backwards, breaking the wall as he flew into a second one. Whoops! Boom! The floor shook as splinters of wood rained down from the ceiling. Damn it, Ace! You didn't have to punch that hard. Sabo got up from the floor, ignoring the cracks in the second wall. Sorry. Sabo launched himself at Ace, swinging the bow staff at Ace's head as he formed his hand into some weird shape, coated with hockey. Dragon Claw. Quote. Ace's eyes widened as the pipe slammed into his side, the floor beneath giving way. The two fell down onto the deck underneath. Ah, fuck. Ace sat up and jumped to his feet. The hell did you do, Sabo? Quote. In my defense, you did half of it. The ceiling was destroyed, walls obliterated. Splinters of wood littered the floor as dust particles floated down gently like snow. Ace heard fast footsteps coming from the left. He and Sabo both looked up guiltily at the corridor, where Marco and Thatch, followed by other commanders, appeared. A period of uncomfortable silence settled over the group. That explains the noise, Thatch chuckled nervously. Marco ran a hand over his face. What the fuck did you guys do? You know what, scratch that. He called for Blamenko, the shipwright, who stepped through the crowd. That's a good question, Marco. In all my years, this damage, how you too? Blamenko gave up and went to get spare wood to repair the massive holes in the Moby Dick. By the way, who the fuck are you? Haruta pointed accusingly at Sabo. Ah. It seemed as if a light bulb went off in Sabo's head. "Pleasure to meet you. I'm Outlook D." Sabo, although I prefer just Sabo. He bowed at 90 degrees. "Okay, and what exactly is your business with our dear brother?" Thatch looked pointedly at Ace, heroically ignoring the venomous, "I'm not your brother." Ace spat at them. "Well, you see, Ace is my brother," Sabo grinned. The commander's jaws dropped. "EHH? Question mark. Question mark. Question mark. Question mark. Quote. And my prayers are wearing thin. I'm worn even before the day begins. I'm worn, I've lost my will to fight. I'm worn, so heaven, so come and flood my eyes. So, let me get this straight." Thatch scribbled notes about Sabo. Everyone was back up on deck, trying to figure out who Sabo was and where he came from. "Your family tree is fucked up, seeing as you have Portgas D. Ace as your adopted brother and you have the fucking hero of the Navy as your grandfather. You came on your grandfather's marine ship in order to get here, disguising yourself as a marine for the entire time, and then fought someone from our crew while you were on the ship?" Quote. "Yep." Sabo ignored Ace's shouts of, "Don't tell them that much information. I'm trying to kill their captain." Quote. Marco frowned, leaning on the rail overlooking the sea. But the only people sent away from the Moby recently were Teach and others from the 2nd Division. They said that they would arrive around New Year's. What? Ace gaped at Marco like he'd grown 2 heads. "Yeah, why? Do you have a problem with him?" Quote. Ace shut up and stalked off quickly, walking around unconscious pirates who couldn't hold their booze. Sabo decided it was the perfect time to drop another bombshell on the 2 commanders. "I forgot to mention, I'm also Chief of Staff in the Revolutionary Army." Thatch dropped his head on his arms. "I am not drunk enough for this shit." Marco patted his back sympathetically. "Happy New Year, Thatch." Happy New Year. Chapter 12. Something's changing. The sun was on the horizon, brilliant rays of gold bleeding into blue. Seagulls cried in the air as they delivered newspapers, getting tasty snacks, if they were lucky, and berries for the papers that they delivered. Sabo and Ace stood together by the railing, Sabo sipping tea. Ace wondered where the hell he'd produced that from, out of thin air, he supposed, watching the waves crash rhythmically against the Moby Dick. Flecks of sea foam flew in the air, painting a beautiful scene as the sun rose. Drunk pirates and marines alike were sprawled all around the deck of the ship, limbs bent at strange angles as spilled booze stained the wooden planks. The only sober ones from the mix were a very irate Marco and Whitebeard, the captain himself. Marco himself was nowhere on the deck, as he was in the crow's nest keeping watch in case any fools decided to challenge the strongest man in the world while the majority of his crew was passed out on the ground. Whitebeard, well, he had disappeared somewhere, probably forced by doctors and nurses back to his room because he drank way too much. Ace was also fairly certain that Garp wasn't drunk, the old man had probably just fallen asleep. Garp's booze tolerance was just plain unfair. A seagull landed on the railing of the ship, large eyes blinking up hopefully at Sabo and Ace. Sighing, Ace walked to a passed-out marine and dug through his pockets, finding a few berries. He put it inside the seagull's pouch, taking out the daily newspaper. Sabo watched Ace, amused as he continued sipping his tea. "Anything interesting?" Quote. "Nah. Just some shit about some pirate stirring up trouble in one of Whitebeard's territories." At Sabo's poorly hidden grin, Ace hastily added, not me. Stop looking at me like that." He bumped his brother's shoulder playfully. Frowning, Ace read more in the paragraph, which said that Marshall D. Teach of the 2nd Division had been the one to take care of the situation. Feeling sick to his stomach, Ace handed the paper to Sabo, without ripping it, what an accomplishment, and directed his gaze at the far horizon. Sabo broke the unusually calm silence. "Mind telling me what your problem with Teach is?" Quote. Ace tensed, just slightly, but replied, "He's a Whitebeard pirate." "I'm trying to kill Whitebeard." Sabo sighed. "Bullshit. I've known you for years, Ace. I can tell when you're trying not to hate someone and when you really, truly, hate someone or something." Sabo paused. "Like Luffy. You kept telling me that he was a dumbass, yet he wormed his scrawny ass into your heart." Ah. There it was, a brother's sixth sense. It was scarily accurate. Ace put his head in his hands, dark locks falling over his face, shadowing it so Sabo couldn't read his expression as he considered his response. A brilliant idea popped into his mind. Why not be as vague as humanly possible? Ace lifted up his face, waving around his hand airily. "I just get this really, really weird vibe from him, you know? Like how Luffy can tell if a person is good or bad or not." Quote. Sabo nodded, encouraging Ace to continue. "Well, that's just like me with Teach. I can tell that something bad is gonna happen with him. Well, like Dragon says, always trust your gut." Ace yawned and stretched, bones popping. A devious grin stretched on his face. "Do you know Dragon's first name?" Quote. Sabo's brow furrowed. Isn't it like Monkey D. Dragon, or something?" "Oh, shit. Ace, you cannot be fucking with me right now. You're saying that Luffy is?" Quote. The raven-haired responded by cackling madly, bounding away out of his brother's reach. Sabo set his tea down and gave chase, the two Ds running, not unlike headless chickens, around the ship. The sun had now fully risen and a few members of Whitebeard's crew started to stir. As Ace rounded a bend, determined not to let Sabo catch him, his stomach growled, demanding to be fed. All of a sudden, he felt weak and lightheaded as he collapsed to the floor. A gnawing pain chewed at his stomach, making him feel sick and nauseous. Sabo's eyes widened as he caught up to Ace. "Ace. What the hell, this isn't a narcolepsy attack." "Saint Mock hurts," Ace mumbled through clenched teeth, curled up into a ball. Sabo pried Ace's hands off his stomach, unbuttoning Ace's shirt. He ignored, although winced, at the hiss of pain that escaped from his brother. The blonde slowly paled. "Ace, when was the last time you ate something?" By now, the pain was getting worse by the second, Ace blinking slower and slower. Sabo stared at Ace's chest, where he could count the number of ribs on his body. Panicking, Sabo said louder, "Ace, look at me. When was the last time you ate something?" Quote. Sluggishly, Ace responded uncertainly, "I dunno, maybe a couple weeks ago." Quote. Sabo cursed under his breath. "Ace, you're AD. You eat far more than the average person. Do they even feed you? Damn it. Have you been eating proper meals? Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark." He rushed off, footsteps pounding on the wood of the Moby Dick, presumably searching for a doctor. That didn't register in Ace's mind as he tried to form a coherent defense that Thatch did try to feed him. He just refused the food, it was his body anyway, he could do whatever he wanted to with it. Sabo shouldn't care. Right? Right? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. His mind slowed down and blackness took him, swallowing him up as his eyes fluttered shut. I was left to my own devices. Many days fell away with nothing to show. And the walls kept tumbling down in the city that we love. Gray clouds roll over the hills bringing darkness from above. Sabo's mind spun. How the fuck didn't he notice this? The two were sparring just hours before. Who was a doctor on Whitebeard's damn crew? Were they all passed out? The only sober ones were Gramps, Whitebeard, possibly Thatch, and Marco. Marco the fucking Phoenix. He could help Ace, right? After all, he was a doctor. Marco was in the crow's nest, which one? There were 4 on the Moby Dick, for heaven's sake. Who the hell needed that many? He did not have time for this shit, his brother was in pain. The part of his brain that still operated, thanks to the intense training by the revolutionaries, told him that there was this helpful little tool called observation hockey. Sabo used it and found a presence in the 3rd nest from the right. He quickly scaled the netting, choosing to ignore the fact that he was speaking to the 1st Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. Oh, how Koala would murder him. He was the chief of staff in the Revolutionary Army. Hopefully Dragon wouldn't murder him. Get your sorry ass down right now. Ace is gonna fucking die. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Sabo shouted hysterically at the poor commander on the receiving end. Marco was half awake with a tankard of booze next to him. Sabo did not come all this way to watch his brother die from starvation. For the love of his brother was too strong to die from something like starva. Calm down. Marco stood up and walked over to the edge of the railing, towards Sabo as he rubbed his eyes. The hell do you mean, and I quote, Ace is gonna, die? Quote. At this point, Sabo was rather annoyed. And when he was annoyed, Koala had said that things didn't work out the normal way, on the contrary, violently. To say the least. This characteristic of his was shown as he had the brilliant idea to throw Marco, roughly, he might add, off the crow's nest as he jumped down after him, breaking more floorboards in the process. Thankfully, Marco turned into his phoenix form right before he hit the ground, soaring into the sky with some sort of irritated bird call. Whitebeard would have murdered him if Marco had really died from the fall. Sabo genuinely would have appreciated the amazing sight of Marco's phoenix form, but Ace, damn it! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. The fuck? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Marco's eye twitched, he was pissed beyond pissed. Like a flaming turkey, the unhinged part of Sabo's brain thought. He ran towards Ace's limp body, shaking him as an enraged Marco approached the 2D brothers. Marco opened his mouth to yell the shit out of his brother-in-law, was it? Then again, Ace hadn't really agreed to join the crew, yet, anyway. Oh well, the Whitebeard Pirates weren't going to accept a no for an answer. Then he saw Ace's current state and all his anger dissipated as he immediately understood why Sabo had said that Ace was going to die. The kid was fucking malnourished. He was paper thin, skin hanging off his bones. He had a colorful choice of words to describe Ace's body, but the main one was not fucking good. If the kid had been found a week later, he probably would have already been dead, or close to it, anyway. Then there were the cuts and bruises that Ace had earned tussling with Pops every single day. Since he didn't eat, the nutrients he needed that would help him heal faster and fight infection just wasn't there to support him. Marco could already see the early signs of infection on one particular nasty wound. How had Ace hidden this from them? No wonder Ace was cranky all the time, barely emerging from the depths of his room besides his daily assassination attempt. He just didn't have the energy to. Then there was just something screaming wrong with his left elbow. There was a serious bruise on it that looked like it had been there for a while. Marco suspected that he'd bruised his bone. Ace would probably need an elbow brace for that, but why didn't he say something? That should have hurt like hell. Ace had been deliberately starving himself, getting himself hurt and doing nothing about it, like he didn't value his own life. Marco registered Sabo yelling at him to hurry the fuck up and to treat Ace already. He understood, he would be worried as well if one of his brothers were hurt like this. But Ace is our brother now, no matter how much he kicks and struggles and refuses. We will help him with his mental issues, and not let him go no matter how many floors he destroys. Marco exhaled, spreading his blue flames over Ace's deathly pale body to stabilize him as he picked him up, bridal style. He had to be careful with patience. The last time he'd slung someone over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and brought him to the medical ward. His flames wouldn't burn Ace, they would never hurt a sibling. His flames were meant to heal, not to destroy. Sabo followed him, the blonde running his gloved fingers through his hair anxiously. But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like you've been here before? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? Ace woke up, a sense of déjà vu flooding his mind as the smell of. No, he did not reset. He had come this far, he'd even found out Sabo was alive. He blinked blearily as he looked over to his right, spotting his blonde brother snoozing, head resting on his hands as he snored softly. Then there was a cup of water. When was the last time he drank something? When was the last time he ate something? Okay, so maybe starving himself wasn't the best way to make a statement to the clingy white-beard pirates, but he was thirsty as fuck. His hands shook as he took the cup and brought it to his dry, parched lips, cursing quietly as he spilled some on his bare chest. Hadn't he been wearing a shirt? Sabo was awake in an instant, stabilizing Ace's trembling hands, as to prevent any more spills. This Sabo looked angry and concerned and like he wanted to strangle the living fuck out of Ace for some unexplainable reason. After Ace had drunk his fill, Sabo put the cup down and exhaled. Ace, what the fuck were you thinking starving yourself like that? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. You, Sabo pointed a gloved finger at Ace's chest, could have fucking died. I did not come here to watch my brother die on me. Exclamation mark. Quote. Lowering his voice an octave, Sabo glared at Ace. Listen, I know you never had an ounce of self-worth as a kid because you were his son, but that doesn't give you the right to starve yourself until the brink of death. If it weren't for Marco, you would have been. Sabo cut off his rant, running his hand over his face. Then he continued, slightly calmer, although an aura of pure, unadulterated menace enveloped him. Do you even know the extent of your injuries? Do you know what not eating enough does to your body? You're a fucking D, Ace. You eat way more than the normal person, so even if you ate one measly meal, yes, Thatch told me, that wouldn't even do anything aside from holding you over for, what, an hour? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Exclamation mark. Then there's the matter of what you drank. Not drinking shit is unhealthy, even you knew that. Hell, even Luffy knew that, and he was the stupidest one of all. Now I think you're the stupid one here. He sounded borderline hysterical. Ace coughed, his ribs aching as he did so. Fine, I'll admit that starving myself probably wasn't my best idea. Quote. Sabo smacked Ace over the head. And, what else? Quote. Ace pouted. And I won't do it again. Sabo crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow at the Fire Logia. I promise I won't do it again, not in this loop, anyway, Ace thought. Sabo then hissed, you have yet to explain why the fuck there is a scar on your back. Ace gulped nervously. So you see. Thankfully, he was saved by Marco entering the room, looking almost as pissed off as Sabo. He was followed by Thatch, who was carrying a clipboard with him, ready to take notes about something. Ace wished he could fall back asleep. He was not at all prepared to deal with this shit. Sure, he could understand why Sabo was angry at him, but Marco and Thatch. That was a different story. He'd acted like nothing but an asshole towards them, so why should they care? Thatch plopped himself straight down on a chair and began a rant, one that wasn't as explosive as Sabo's, thankfully, but one that told Ace he fucked up big time. The pompadour-haired man started with, you have 5 seconds to explain why the hell you didn't say anything when you were fucking starving. As the head chef of this ship, it's my responsibility to make sure everyone gets fed. I am not going to stand for this shit. Thatch cursing was a huge red flag. He never cursed unless he was seriously, and Ace meant seriously, mad. Ace fiddled with the white blanket on the bed. You see, I technically didn't join this crew yet. He knew full well Thatch would not take his half-assed answer, but he still had to try, right? His reply only seemed to further enrage Thatch. No, you weren't supposed to answer. I didn't want to hear. You know what, forget I asked. I'm trying to say that just because you didn't join the crew, no, you are a part of this crew, you are our brother, and brothers are supposed to take care of each other. This means that we failed to take care of the youngest. Marco and I are your older brothers, whether you accepted it or not, and we failed to notice the signs of a starving boy. A starving boy that we were around for weeks. Weeks, Ace. Quote. Damn, Thatch was doing a really good job of making Ace feel ashamed of himself, even though he was trying his hardest to act like a prickly dick. Thatch then tapped his pencil on the clipboard. Now tell me your allergies, how much you eat, what you don't like eating, your favorite food, everything. Ace opened his mouth to protest, but Sabo, sensing this, smacked Ace on the back of his head and said, if you don't tell him everything, I will, because I know it all. I lived with you for the first couple of years of your life. Ace gave his best I'll kill you later death glare at Sabo but complied. Fine, I like meat. No allergies, and I hate drinking bleach. Thatch choked. This is a serious matter, Ace. And why the fuck would you drink bleach? Sabo cut Thatch off. Trust me, we drank bleach before. Tasted like shit. Marco gaped at the 2D brothers. Ace huffed. "I hate alcohol. All alcohol. It sucks." Thatch nodded, writing away. "How much do you eat?" Quote. Ace shifted a bit. Oh, he was not going to tell them. Sabo answered, he ate at least a whole crocodile as a kid, but I'm pretty sure he eats around 3 or 4 crocodiles now, which is equivalent to around 23 plates. Thatch dropped his pencil. Pardon? Quote. Ace hissed, why the fuck would you tell them that, Sabo? I mean, you're accurate, but why? Quote. Sabo grinned, ignoring and taking slight pleasure in how Thatch was choking on his pit. Food is vital, Ace. It trumps all. By the way, 23 plates is for one meal, not counting snacks and shit. There was a faint mutter of, he eats more than Teach, coming from Thatch, and immediately Ace was on guard again. Marco quickly stepped in, pushing Thatch out of the chair and sitting down in his place. Sorry about that, he can be a little overly emotional. But I have to say, in his place, you eat 23 plates and you haven't eaten for, Marco groaned. Whatever. Everything Thatch said is indeed true, and we're your family now whether you like it or not. Ace turned to Sabo for help because if he were a part of their family, which he wasn't, he roared internally, then this was complete mutiny. 2 against 1. Unfair. Sabo was merely nodding along to Marco's words, having the nerve to pat Ace on the shoulder. Scratch that. 3 against 1. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Marco continued. I am your temporary doctor, since Bay drank too much, so here's what I have to say. We ran tests on you while you were asleep and you're badly injured. Malnourished, you need more nutrients. Please drink at least 18 cups of water a day. You also severely bruised a bone and you'll need an elbow brace for that. You can go choose a color, I don't give a damn. A cut you got from fighting Pops is infected. We treated it, but we'll have to see it every night to make sure the infection doesn't spread. That's all, unless you want me to go more into detail about the state of your injuries. By the way, the wound you got from being stabbed by that Marine is mostly healed. We'll take out the stitches soon. Any questions? Quote. Ace gaped at Marco for a split second, but then replied, how long was I out? Quote. Marco shrugged. 3-4 hours. You should have been out for a day at least, but you woke up early. Ace frowned, setting his jaw in a firm line. Izo appeared at the doorway, bringing food into the room. Ace was surprised that Izo was sober. I heard someone yelling something about 23 plates of food, so I brought it for Ace. Said person looked over at Sabo. Does everyone know about my condition? Quote. Sabo replied, only the commanders and Whitebeard. I didn't tell Gramps because he'll kill you for starving yourself. He's really proud of you fighting Whitebeard though. He trailed off at Ace's stormy expression that was quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. Ace, are you okay? Sabo frowned. Something was wrong with his brother. No, everything's fine, Ace answered a bit too quickly. Yeah, no, Sabo did not believe him. Ace picked up a spoon and began eating the food way too fast. Sabo forced him to slow down because Ace would throw up if he continued at his pace. Whitebeard stared at the report that Marco had given him. It included the fact that their newest recruit, Ace, was still refusing to join the crew and in fact starved himself to make a point to them. He considered telling Garp the information about his grandson but decided against it. If Ace wanted to tell him, he would tell him. It also said in the report that Ace eats 23 plates in one meal. There had been only one person that Whitebeard remembered who could eat that much, if not more. That same man could go toe-to-toe with him before his execution. Ah, the good old days. Whitebeard picked up his sake bottle to take a drink from it, but one of his nurses quickly swiped it away, scolding him about his health and whatnot. Garp was laughing, again. He had a drink with Eddie and of course Sengoku had yelled the shit out of him over a den, but he got to see his grandsons. Seriously, he only told Sengoku that he was on a friend's ship and was seeing his grandson Ace who he wasn't going to catch even though he was a pirate. His excuse would definitely work even though one of his subordinates warned him that it wasn't an excuse. Maybe he should go visit Luffy and train him to become a fine Marine. He'd already seen Sabo in a Marine uniform, too bad he didn't get the chance to put Ace in one, too. But he had to leave Eddie's ship, because duty called, unfortunately. Oh well, he'd find Ace and Sabo first and say goodbye. Give them a parting gift of a fist of love. Whistling merrily, he found Ace and Sabo in the medbay for some strange reason, but he didn't dwell too much on it. Ace was getting chewed out by Sabo and the Phoenix Brat. The bread-haired man passed out on the floor foaming at the mouth. He ignored the last two and walked straight up to Ace and Sabo. I'm going back. Marco watched the scene unfold in interest. Ace and Sabo both looked up at him, blinking owlishly. "K, bye," Sabo said, grinning. Fist of love. Is that all you have to say to your dear old grandpa? Exclamation mark. Quote. Gah. Quote. At least look like you don't want me to go. I'm your grandpa and you haven't seen me in ages. Quote. Ace looked down at the bed, glad he hadn't gotten hit and Garp didn't notice anything wrong with him. Sabo was really a good distraction, but then Sabo would notice something wrong, he always did. Oh, he was fucked. Sabo was staying. Not that he wanted Sabo to leave, but still. And what do you have to say, brat? Exclamation mark. Garp glowered down at Ace, fist steaming. Ace shifted nervously in his bed. He then got up and hugged the old man, tears threatening to fall. Why were his stupid eyes burning? Exclamation mark. Oh, maybe it was because he hadn't seen his grandpa in many loops. Garp was taken aback at the show of affection because Ace never hugged anyone. Except for Sabo earlier, but that was an exception. Bye, Gramps, Ace thought to himself. The moment was ruined by Thatch choosing to wake up that instant, rubbing his eyes. What did I miss? Quote. Ace broke free from the hug as Marco smacked Thatch over the head, hissing at him. You have no tact, dumbass. Garp gave Marco a long, searching look. Tell Eddie that it's okay to adopt my grandson. Ace gaped at Garp. Shitty old Gigi. They kidnapped me. Kidnapped. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Quote. Fist of love. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Quote. Damn it. Quote. But as Garp sailed away in his ship, he couldn't just help feel as if something was wrong.
Unfortunately, this part is over. I hope you enjoyed it. My apologies for all those quotes. Please have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night. See you next time, my dear faves.